and see who all is here. Angela's here, and Lisa, and Katie. And who else is with us? Let's see. Stephanie. Okay, looks like that's all of us tonight. I had a note from Kimmery that she couldn't be here tonight, and so it's really getting to be busy. I'm sure next week has a lot of stuff on your calendar at schools, with programs and all kinds of stuff. So with that being said, next week, and I too have some commitments on my calendar, so next week I am planning to just do one session and sort of combine the class and the office hour session on Thursday night. Okay. So that's not until 8 o'clock. It's a little bit later, so maybe that will be after some school programs for you. But if not, I'll record it, and it too will be a session of just kind of wrapping up. I think everybody is in a good place with, you know, having your portfolio finished, and what you have to do now is finish up these last assignments in the class. And honestly, you're all doing well. I mean, if you were short some points of having an A in the class, I sent you a note already. So if you didn't get a note from me, then you're probably already, you know, at an A. But I would like for you to finish these final assignments, and some of you have already done some of those. I know some of you have submitted your final reflection already, and I don't know if you have done the Strength Finder assessment that is in the third book that you had for this course, called Strengths Based on Leadership. So if you haven't done that, that's one of the final assignments as well. And by next Thursday or Friday, you should have, you know, all of your assignments completed. Grades go in on the 15th. Okay, so I may be posting some of those earlier next week if you have finished all of your assignments. So does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Strength based on leadership. Where's that assignment?
In the back of the book, there is a little gray, it's like a little packet, and it has a code inside that packet.
Holy crap, yep.
And so I think that code takes you to an online self-assessment.
Okay.
It will help you to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Okay. And in your discussion board 27, that is it's a required discussion board, and that's an assignment for next week.
You know, I thought, okay, honestly, I thought it ended at, I thought those are the last discussion boards. And I'm like, okay, mine, I'm like 27, what? Where's this? When I printed mine out, I didn't see this, Dr. Whitaker.
You didn't? Yeah.
No, ma'am.
You must not have the last page, because this week is, you have 23 and 24. You have to do one of those. And then next week is 25 and 26. You do one of those. And
that's what I'm missing.
Do 27.
Yeah.
So you have 2 discussion boards next week and 1 this week.
Okay, because
honestly, that's the last page. If you printed the discussion board questions,
19 was the last one. That's all I got when I went onto the syllabus and printed that out. Maybe I got the other ones, because at the very beginning there was 2 that had your name on it, but I thought I had the right one because the other one didn't have all that on it. Okay. So now I got to go back and totally look again when I.
Well, I'll try to go in and pull this page. So I'll try to email this to you.
Yeah, because I'm like, what's she talk about?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like you didn't get the last page, so I don't know what happened with that, but I will. I'll try to send that. Is anybody else missing that?
I am.
Everybody else has it?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Surprise.
Listen, my computer plays all kinds of tricks on me too.
Okay, so
I'll email that to you.
Okay, thank you. And I will get on it ASAP.
So you actually have to do 3 more discussion boards. You know.
Okay, no problem.
And do that assessment out of that book.
Okay. Got it. I got
That's
the book.
the
I was
rest.
wondering what it was for because I never used it.
Right. Yeah. There's actually, there's only like a couple of little chapters in that book. It's pretty interesting reading. And then the most of the book is like additional resources.
Okay.
So I think once you do that little self-assessment, it might make a lot of sense to you. So this could be your Christmas reading. Just for fun, right? Just
okay, you're right. You're right. I will. Yeah. Fun reading.
Just for fun. Okay. So, but that's what you have. You have three more discussion boards. You have to do 23 or 24, and then you have to do 25 or 26. You have a choice. Okay. And then the last one is 27. That's a required one, which is based on the is just taking that assessment. That's what 27 is. Okay. And then you have to do your final reflection. And you have instructions in there to email that to Dr. Lamb. Submit that to Dr. Lamb. Kimmery sent me a note today, and she says, do you need a copy of it also? I would like a copy of it. So when you email it to him, if you would just CC me on that, then I can read it as well. He shares a lot of information just in general from all the reflections that people write. But, I think it's pretty interesting to see the development of students, over the course of your program. So if you could just copy me on that, that would be great. A few of you already have, and I've read some of those. So you can sort of take it. If next week is extremely busy for you at school, then you might want to try to knock these last assignments out, this week or by the weekend, so that you won't have to worry about anything else. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions about any of your work or so forth?
Dr. Whitaker, I have a question about the license, the new license.
Okay.
Do we have to do anything as far as that's concerned? Do we have to send in an application or money or whatever?
Yes, you will have to send in the money. It's my understanding, though, that Gardner Webb submits this stuff to DPI, saying that you are, that this is to be added to your license. And I believe the process might be that the state then will reach out to you.
Dr. Whitaker, we received an email from Seth Opera. We have to complete an application in DPI if you're a North Carolina person.
Okay, so Seth Opera. Okay, thank you, Katie. Yeah.
So, yeah, South Carolina just has to complete the change action form and send Seth Opera the college recommendation form, which he'll complete for us and send over. After we've submitted like the praxis and everything, then South Carolina will update our certificate.
Right, and you have a fee to pay to South Carolina, right?
My understanding is no. They've told me no.
Oh, okay. Well, in North Carolina, I think it's about $55.
Okay.
To update your license in North Carolina. So, Katie, tell me that again.
Sure. So, in South Carolina, you have to complete the praxis.
Right.
And then you'll have to send Seth Opera. It's the college recommendation form. You can find it on the State Department website. And then you'll also have to submit your transcripts of completion and the request change action form, indicating that you want your certificate evaluated for an additional certification area.
Okay. All right. I thought that, and I believe that in North Carolina, I believe that Gardner Webb contacts the State Department, and then you probably have to do the application thing, but they will have your information on file. I believe that might be correct. I will.
He sent a pretty detailed email. I believe it was the end of last week.
Seth sent that to you?
He did. He sent it to everybody who was graduating.
Okay. I did not get a copy of that. So I'll double check on that and send something out to all of you.
It was sent on the 29th.
Do you have it, Stephanie?
I do. I just pulled it up. It was sent on the 29th. I'll go ahead and forward it to you.
Okay. That'll be great. I'll make sure I'll send it out again, just to be sure that all of you have that information. But that's something, this is probably a good time of the year. The state departments are not overly busy, like they are in the summer when they're trying to get everybody up and ready to go into the school year. So you should be able to get that in just a few weeks, probably into January. So that will be good. Okay, any other questions about the to-do list? Anybody have any other to-dos? Anybody have any interviews looming? Not yet? You're not scared of that, are you, Stephanie?
Yes, I am. I am.
No.
Guilford County, though, is going to try to have about 6 to 8 schools with opportunity culture schools. And so my old curriculum facilitator suggested that that I might want to apply for that, like a $20,000 raise or something like that. But that's not the motivation. I thought it would be a nice transition from a teacher to a lead teacher for a small group into that administrative role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it would be. Because, you'll have an opportunity anytime you're leading. And even if you continue to teach for, some more years before you enter into administration, hopefully you'll continue to seek some leadership roles in your school. And in fact, our reading for this week is all about facilitating change. And I've really enjoyed Glickman's book in this course because I agree so much with. I think his book is so practical of what you see and what you face, and how you have to work in the schools. And I agree with the things that he talks about there. So we have spent several class periods this semester talking about being that 21st century leader, and it's really funny. I lead a little group of girls, grades 1st through 6th at my church in GAs, and we wanted to go caroling at a nursing home. And so I called this nursing home that my grandmother actually had been in several years back. But anyway, I needed to speak to the activities director. And so I was on hold for a little while, and then this lady comes on the phone and she says, "This is Jackie Smith." And she was a principal in Cumberland County at the same time that I was. And she went on to talk to me about how she feels like she's teaching preschool a couple of days a week, and she's doing this activities director, working with the elderly at this retirement center. And she said, "I really feel like I'm making a difference." So you just have so many years ahead of you and so many opportunities for different roles that you might find yourself in to make a difference. And that's what it's really all about. She said, sometimes as a principal, I felt like people were telling me to do certain things, and there were such perimeters, and it was almost an impossible task to begin with. And sometimes school systems get into ruts of things being so, and maybe even a principal who tries to micromanage or something, gets into this rut of everything being sort of cookie cutter. And there's no room for that creativity. And I think that's what teaching is all. I think that's where the joy of teaching is when teachers can be creative, and you can, you have to follow standards because there has to be a measure for making sure that what needs to be taught is being taught. But I think teachers need to be involved in that and taught, and be involved in the discussions about what instruction and how and when and the timelines and, all of that kind of stuff. So you'll have an opportunity, whether you are, working like this with a small group or you become an administrator right away, you'll have an opportunity to sort of set your sight on being that change maker, having a vision And hopefully you will find yourself in a school or in a school district where that will be appreciated and encouraged. And hopefully, maybe some of you have had a leader who encouraged you to go into this program, offered you some leadership opportunities as a teacher. And then when you become an administrator of a school, your staff is your classroom. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to make all of those people be successful, because when they're successful, you will be successful as the leader. And so, all of the things that we have read about different leadership styles and different supervisory behaviors, and knowing when to use which one, and being transparent, and building trust and relationships with people, and all of those things really go into being able to realize some of those visions. And so the reading for this week is about facilitating change, and that sometimes is a difficult thing to do, but it is the way that we have to go. If you look at society and the world, I used to tell my 8th graders, about about going into high school, about how they needed to be ready for just lots of changes. And we talked about cell phones, like, how quickly are cell phones updated, new technology. And by the time you buy a cell phone, the next one's out in a couple of months, even if you get the latest one, So it's really hard to keep up with. And so if schools don't change at the rate like society and the world is changing, then we as teachers and educators, we're shortchanging those students, because they need to be prepared, and they need to be prepared to be in a mode of change. I remember when I became an assistant principal at a high school, there was a teacher on the staff. She had been teaching for 30 years. She had been in the same classroom teaching the same subject for 30 years. And I mean, that is just it was almost unheard of, 10 or 15 years ago, but it really is today. And so I think that there's no way that the world is going to stay the same for 30 years. You just have to be moving and developing that spirit of change, welcoming change, looking at it as challenges. So as a leader, some of the things about building those relationships and trust and so forth, that is how you begin to make a team that would be able to work together to collaborate and decide what that change is going to be in your school, and how you're all going to be a team member to make that happen. I think that it's like that in your classroom as well. Sometimes you see a teacher, maybe a young teacher, who really struggles with classroom management and stuff like that. And you walk in that classroom for an observation, and you sort of see, like, the teacher is over here and the students are here, and sometimes they're just not together. They're just not on the same team. And so, how sometimes you have to make somebody else believe that they are the leader, that they are the ones that are important. I think you have to do that with kids. I think you have to sort of be persuasive and like, we're all in this together. We're all going to do this together, and you have to join right in with them. I think kids respect that type of environment and learning when it's like a team effort, and you're all working towards, the goals, and setting some of those goals together and everything. And sometimes you, as the teacher, what the goal has to be. You just make them feel like they're a part of setting that goal, not that you're just always listening to them and not doing what you have to do. And so the same thing will be true when you're a principal. You'll be having orders from higher up above you, and there will be some things that you have to accomplish. So there'll be some things that the district will want you to pass on to the staff, and you really don't even want to have to tell them because you already know how many things they already have and stuff like that. So you have to find some ways to sugarcoat some things and to make them feel like it's all a team, and not asking people to do things that you wouldn't do. Building that spirit of that culture in your school. And then when you have that, you're able to accomplish a lot of those things that you have to do. But in the beginning of this chapter, in chapter 20, about the facilitating the change, there was, let me see here if I can read this. Sorensen wrote, the imagery of educational reform says more about hope and good intentions than it does about anything else. That the road to hell is indeed paved with good intentions is an adage quite appropriate to the history of educational reform. That's kind of sad. That educational reform, there's been all kinds of reform. And if you run into some teachers that have been teaching for a while, they'll say things like, oh, this is just one more thing, it'll be here for a little while and then it'll be gone. There'll be something new. And that's kind of been the history. I think teachers sometimes are our own worst enemy, but it does say here that the need for educational change is apparent as the fact that our world is continuously changing, what we were just talking about. So I think that you have to have that spirit of global education, of being a part of the world. The ultimate goal is that you're preparing students to be a part of the world. You want them to be productive citizens, and you want them to be able to have the competencies and the skills and the knowledge that they're going to need to be able to work with other people from all around the world. Even if they stay right in your little small town, they're going to be a part of the big world. And so I think it's so important to prepare kids for that. I just don't know how we can think of that any differently. And the same is true for our teachers. You will not, no matter how deep of a concern that is in your heart and how much you believe that, you can't teach every subject to every child, and you can't do the whole school yourself. You have to rely on your team of teachers. And so that's just going to be really important to be able to foster that type of change and that type of culture and environment in your school. And I think that I think the outcomes will be good. I do think that there are a lot of schools that are changing, but there are still a lot of schools in this nation that look the same that they looked, 50 years ago. And that is just, that's really just unacceptable in my opinion. But I'm hoping that all of you will be that 21st century leader that you need to be. So this chapter does just go into a lot of reading on that change management and facilitating that change and building the trust and the relationships and things like that. So it's pretty interesting, and it talks a little bit about situational leadership, because remember that's what we said, that a really good leader knows how to identify situations and be the type of leader that you need to be in that situation. That's the really effective leaders. And so that was some good reading. Hershey's reading this week was about was some more about situational leadership. And it's very theory-based. There's some good reading in there, but it's pretty theory-based, and you can add that to your little pocket of information. But I do think that you need to really keep in mind the whole idea of change and being that 21st century leader, keeping that as the ultimate goal about preparing students. So your discussion boards that you have to choose from are pretty interesting as well. they're very practical choices, and it's all about that, about about the change. And one of them is about the dress code, and there's a little situation, and you have to talk about it. There's a young teacher that has a lot of tattoos and piercings and all kinds, and the holes in her jeans and all of this kind of stuff, and you have to address that. And there's some things that you think you're never going to have to address, but don't be surprised about anything, because you think that there's a lot of things that you think about behaviors, and you think, well, every adult should know how to behave, with that. But you're going to find a lot of different situations. So I thought that one was pretty interesting, and I'll be interested to see how you're going to manage this teacher's behavior. But it also refers back, we're at the end of that book in Glickman, and he refers back to that Achieve model, which was designed to help people not only identify things that are problems, but also ways to solve it. So that's what this discussion board is about you going back and figuring out how you're going to solve this issue. Anybody have anything you want to add to some of that? You had any experiences with change in your school, or you have a comment about opportunities that your principal has given you, or? Anybody?
I don't know. My principal was talking. She was saying that we need a curriculum coordinator / administrator. So I was kind of nervous about that. So she's trying to look at that starting the new year.
And what was the title again?
She said we're looking at curriculum coordinator / administrator.
Uh-huh.
She's trying to get the new superintendent to agree. He is really, God, this man, he's tough, killing us. I mean, we're all stressed beyond belief. I'm serious. Taking no prisoners. So I've been like,
yeah.
But he's what we needed. We needed that. Our district was it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
So, just got
it sometimes, like you said, it's something that you need, and maybe you can see the value in that, but somebody else might not, that's not in the same place that you are. And that's another thing about facilitating change. Whenever there's a new initiative that you feel like is important for your school, and you feel like that's the direction that you need to go, and you've got some data and some things that are pointing you in that direction. Sometimes there are people on your staff that they're just not gonna feel the same way you do at the same time. But you have to keep moving forward. You can't just throw in the towel because a few people don't want to do what you're doing. My theory is this is where the bus is heading, and if you don't want to go, get off.
It's heading that way.
Because you've got to have the right people on the bus and doing the right jobs to move forward. And it's all about kids. When you really make decisions based on kids and what they need, it's not things like when the 6th grade teachers have their planning period is not something that's going to drive what schedule is going to be. The schedule is going to be based on what is best for these kids. And so you can't let those types of things enter in. You got to keep your focus on making decisions that are good for kids. And like I said, most of the, sometimes when you start an initiative, you'll have some high flyers and you'll have some naysayers. But sometimes some of those that are naysayers, they begin to see some results of the implementation and so forth. And then they come on board. So I would say, when you start something, you may start an implementation, and the teachers on your staff may have some value to add to it. There may be some things that need to be tweaked or just done a little bit differently. And that's fine to talk about that and assess it and so forth. But you're looking at data and you're looking at what kids are getting and how they're learning and so forth. And when that stuff is headed in the right direction, then, this is the way we're going. And you have to be able to be firm enough to let people know that, that this is where this school is heading, and that they need to get on board with that, or you can help them find a better place. Yeah. And you just have to be firm. You have to be able to be firm enough to just tell them those kinds of things, because, it'll make for a much more pleasant culture and environment in your school when most everybody is, on the plane. But like I said, everybody is not going to accept a new initiative like both feet in on the first day. And you've got to try to do some things to educate them about that and how you roll things out. Most teachers are agreeable, and there's a section on this in that reading, but most teachers are pretty agreeable when you have a new initiative and you really talk about it and have it well supported with resources and research and so forth, and they have some time to do it. Now, oftentimes, though, in schools, there's new initiatives upon new initiatives, and nothing is taken off the plate. So the plate is crowded all the time, and teachers don't have enough time to do, things like they really want to do them. So it is a difficult job. It's a difficult situation, because you'll have some initiatives that might be a part of your vision and programs and so forth, but your district also has some. And so sometimes, like I said, well, that's true in your positions, that teachers' plates are just full, and your plate's going to be full as an administrator too. But I'm telling you, across the nation, there are some really rock star teacher leaders and principals and educators, and they're doing all of those things that everybody else has to do, but they're moving forward with their vision. So don't let the mundane things of day to day get you down. As an administrator, especially as an assistant principal, you may find yourself dealing with a lot of discipline in school. Don't let that. I was in a high school, and there were 4 assistant principals, and we were in this little suite together, and we had a secretary in the suite, and teachers would, we had these little forms, for teacher write-ups, and teachers would fill those things out every day. And so at the end of the day, I'd look out there sometimes, and there would be a stack, 6 or 8 inches high. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and some of it was little stuff the teacher needed to take care of, and so forth. But, I just would say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 class periods working on discipline, but the rest of the day I'm going to classrooms, and I'm going to be involved in the learning or doing some other things that you need to do, because you just can't let yourself be buried in the mundane day-to-day kind of stuff. You got to keep moving forward. You got to keep your eyes on the horizon. And in the interview that you all had to do with your assistant principal, there was a question in there about, do you read any professional, literature and things like that? And most of them said, no, I don't have any time to do that. I mean, and I get it, but if you, educational leadership or some of these current publications like that, if you can just, grab one of those and read an article here or there, they're very inspirational. It shows you what other people are doing. As a teacher, you only really know what's going on in your classroom. But when you get out of that classroom and take a leadership role like an assistant principal or principal, you'll get to go into all those classrooms, and you'll see a lot of great things happening. You'll see some things that need some work, but you'll see a lot of great things happening. But I'm since I've retired as a principal, I'm working, and going in and out of a lot of different schools. And so I see a lot of great schools, a lot of innovative, things happening there. And so good things are happening across. And so, and it's not going to happen for those people that are just focused on, oh, we got too much to do, you know. It's going to happen for those who can push beyond that, which takes some perseverance. It takes some strength, and you know, and get some people on board with you. Get those high flyer teachers, you know, and get some results from what you're trying to do, and then share that, and it will continue to grow, and you'll be amazed with all of that. Anybody else have anything to share? Andrea, do you have any words of wisdom for us tonight?
I had to unmute myself. Sorry. I was in the car earlier, so I was trying to get to the house where I could focus on you guys. I've got a crew here tonight. No, but I did want to ask. I double checked my email when I got in, and I definitely did not have that email. So will you be able to
Yes.
forward that information? The last one I had from Seth was from May, and I know they had some issues having me confused with another person by name. So
Okay.
I want to make sure my stuff's not going to the wrong person somewhere out there.
I'll send that out. So I'll try to get that out tomorrow. If I have to, Stephanie, I think, forwarded it to me. I haven't looked yet.
Thank you, Stephanie.
If I don't have it, you know, if something happened in there, I will make sure that I get it, and I'll get that information. If you don't have it by Thursday, you send me a note, okay?
Okay.
I'll get that information right out to you, so you'll know what those next steps are. Okay.
Thank you.
And then, so that's all I really have for you tonight. I just, you know, wanted you to be able to, you know, I feel like I've, you know, really preached so much about this 21st century leadership. That's the name of our course. And the, you know, the goal, or what is it called? I think it's the goal, anyway, for North Carolina students, is that we will, you know, prepare students to be globally competent and competitive. And for me, I mean, I think that just for so many years, I mean, that's kind of been the goal for lots of years. And so what does that look like? You know, are we really making strides to helping our students, you know, become those globally competent students, or are those just some words that sound pretty good, you know? I think you have to really think about that, and you have to think about, you know, what's going to be how am I going to make a difference, you know? And when you are, you know, you can make a difference in your classroom as a teacher, because we need great teachers in the classroom, and so you definitely can make differences there as well. But your audience just gets a little bigger when you go into this leadership role, because you're not only influencing 30 kids in your classroom, now you're going to have, you know, 800 or 1,000 or 1,500 students in your school that you are going to be able to influence how school life is for them. And so think about that, you know, about what that vision's going to be, and, you know, try to be, you know, help to get that culture what you want it to be, and so that that will all trickle down, and that those students will benefit from your vision. And, you know, your audience, when I talk about your audience, you know, I said earlier, and I've said this before, the teachers and the staff in your school they're your classroom. They are your classroom. You're going to be grading them. You're going to be observing. You're going to be coaching. You're going to be mentoring. And, you know, sometimes we hire the best person that we think we can for a position. And, you know, and sometimes you interview somebody, you think it's the greatest interview, and this is going to be the greatest person on our staff. Mm-hmm. And then once they hit the road, it's just not what you thought it was going to be. And you have a lot, you know, and so then you're in this quandary that, okay, do I just get rid of this teacher and start over with somebody new, or do I, or is there enough there that I can develop? Because that, and if there is at all, I think that is the direction to go, because sometimes they just need a little bit more development. And if that's something that you can facilitate and they work with that, then you're better off than starting over, because every time you start over, you're back to square one, So try to, think about that. But you also, the students are part of your audience. Your leadership will filter to them, and also your parents and people in your community, because they're all going to be affected by your leadership. So make a difference, and make it be, make it realize your vision, and be one of those principals that are going to be in the Educational Leadership magazine, talking about the great things going on at your school and so forth. It's, I think that's, and you have to toot your horn, because, sometimes, sometimes things that you're doing, you might not think are so extraordinary, but if it's making a difference in your school, it's worth somebody else hearing, because there's a lot of schools out there still that do not have that kind of leadership. And so that's a good thing. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. And next week, remember, next week I'm just going to do Thursday at 8 o'clock. And we'll just kind of wrap up our last our final reflections and our final class of the semester. And so I'm proud of the work that you've done. You guys have really put in some good work this semester. I think, it's been a lot of reading and a lot of assignments, but I think that it has all been, I don't think any of it has been like busy work. I think it's all been very spot on for what you're going to need and what you're going to be seeing when you enter those leadership roles. So good job with all of that. Anybody else have anything you want to add? Okay, so you've got 3 more assignments.
Mm-hmm.
3 assignments and your final reflection.
Yes.
And wherever you are with that. So I'll get those to you, Pam, and I'll just send them out in case anybody else is missing that. But it does sound like it's a last page.
I actually found them. I was looking while I was there. I'm like, yeah, there they are. They're on there. I just,
Okay, so you got it.
Yeah, I got them.
Okay, all right.
I'll get them in.
Everybody, have a good week. Enjoy the things happening in your school. Try not to think about your overburden and less sleep in the next couple of weeks. But make the best of that and enjoy the moment. Enjoy the presence. All right? Well, have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.